Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Social Work, SOSW, Certificate Programs, Certificate in Social Work and Criminal Justice System, CSWCJS, MSW 031 Social Work Intervention in Correctional Settings, Block-1 Understanding Social Work as a Profession, Unit 1 Social Work as a Profession, 1.0 Objectives. In this unit, we consider the makings of a profession and overview the various ways in which social workers have approached the issue. We begin where the profession took its modern roots in the industrializing nations of Western Europe and North America and conclude with the most recent international views by the end of this unit. You should be able to distinguish professional action from charity or voluntary action, identify the basic components of a profession, discuss the debate on whether social work is a profession, identify the purpose and objectives of social work, and understand the breadth and complexity of the definition affirmed by the International Federation of Social Workers, IFSW. 1.1 Introduction. For most of our history, social workers have struggled, both within and among nations, to establish ourselves as a profession. Perhaps a partial explanation can be found in role theory, which proposes that a sense of identity combines our views of ourselves with our sense of how others see us. For social workers, whose professional responsibilities range from individual case workers and community workers to social activists, policy analysts, and program administrators, the variety of roles to be included are extensive. Those around us, on the other hand, may view us as helpers in time of need, irritants raising problems where there otherwise would be none, and threats to a habitual social order where those who are comfortable do not want to alter their own lifestyle in order to make things easier for the downtrodden. Integrating these diverse views into a clear, mutually agreeable professional definition is understandably challenging. 1.2 Voluntary versus professional action. Charity and voluntary action, while part of the historical roots of social work and social welfare across societies, is different from professional social work. Many of the organized religions of the world have advocated charity as a great virtue. Examples include the Hindu religion sanctifies charity. Love for one's neighbors is an important duty in Judaism. The Old Testament stresses caring for the needy. Christians tell of Jesus Christ who was cared for by strangers and encouraged brotherly love. In Islam, charity has been depicted as equivalent to prayer. Sikh history is replete with examples of voluntary service to all of humanity. Buddhism and Jainism advocate for compassion for the poor and needy. Followers of Zarathustra, known as Parsis, have a saying, Ushta Ahmai, Yahmai Ushta Kehmachit, Fatha Ushtvati, meaning happiness unto him who renders happiness unto others. Perhaps it is a part of basic nature to come forward and provide help to persons in distress, and to do so altruistically, but human beings also tend to be self-serving, and this adversely affects voluntary action. Voluntary action is that action which is done by people voluntarily or of their own accord, out of feelings of compassion or concern for the well-being of others, and for which they are not compensated with wages. Voluntary action is mainly characterized by 1. The urge to help others and promote their well-being in all possible ways, not necessarily monetarily. 2. The absence of any kind of expectation for any material gains in lieu of the help given. 3. A sense of social concern and orientation toward helping others in need. 4. Belief in the virtue of service. 5. Belief in the primacy of one's duty over one's rights. In India, there is a tendency to label Shramdan as social work. The term is derived from Sharam, manual labor, and Dan, donation, or voluntary manual labor to promote the collective good. While aimed at promoting well-being and reflective of common public interest, Shramdan is different from social work not only in terms of objectives but also in terms of methods and techniques, as well as philosophy. Shramdan has the goal of getting concrete work done, and the underlying philosophy is that it is the duty of every person to contribute their labor for the well-being of others and community. Specialized knowledge and technical skills are not required, and meeting individuals' needs, particularly intangible needs such as for love, affection, autonomy, respect, recognition, and self-actualization, is not the focus. The means of supporting people or providing help also differs because with Shramdan, the means is manual labor. Abraham Flexner was born in 1866 in the US. He is known as a reformer of medical education because he wrote an influential document, the Flexner Report, that was highly critical of American medical education at the turn of the 20th century. Dr. Flexner was invited to speak at the National Conference on Social Welfare in 1915 and titled his speech, "Is Social Work a Profession?" In that speech, he listed 6 attributes of professions. Professions 1. Have intellectual operations with large, individual responsibility, free, resourceful, and unhampered intelligence applied to complicated problems, discretion as to what to do. 2. Base practices on science and learning. 3. Use knowledge for a practical and definite end. 4. Poses an educationally communicable technique. 5. Tendency to self-organize, have a culture. And 6. Helping. Professions are altruistic in motivation. Although it has been common over the years to refer to social work as a profession, scholars have been debating for almost a century as to whether social work meets all of Flexner's criteria. In 1957, sociologist Ernest Greenwood published Attributes of a Profession that further suggested that professions need societal sanction. Greenwood's list of attributes of a profession included a systematic body of knowledge, community sanction, authority or credibility, regulation and control of members, a professional code of ethics, and a culture of values, norms, and symbols. Greenwood asserted that social work in North America appeared to marginally meet these criteria, although critics have continued to ask if social work is an art or a science, and if there is enough unity among social workers to say they have a shared culture. Others have suggested that since it is the purpose of social workers to advocate for social and economic justice through social reform, that societal sanction may not be easily gained. 1.3 Purpose and Objectives of Social Work. The preamble to the American Council on Social Work Education's CSWE Educational Policy and Accreditation Standards states, social work practice promotes human well-being by strengthening opportunities, resources, and capacities of people in their environments, and by creating policies and services to correct conditions that limit human rights and the quality of life. The social work profession works to eliminate poverty, discrimination, and oppression. Guided by a person-and-environment perspective and respect for human diversity, the profession works to effect social and economic justice worldwide. The standards go on to outline the multiple objectives of social work as follows: to enhance human well-being and alleviate poverty, oppression, and other forms of social injustice, to enhance the social functioning and interactions of individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities by involving them in accomplishing goals, developing resources, and preventing and alleviating distress, to formulate and implement social policies, services, and programs that meet basic human needs and support the development of human capacities, to pursue policies, services, and resources through advocacy and social or political actions that promote social and economic justice, to develop and use research, knowledge, and skills that advance social work practice, to develop and apply practice in the context of diverse cultures. Due to the dual focus on individual or group functioning and social policies, social work has long had professional boundary and identity issues. The broad scope of practice in North America in particular has meant that social work has been unable to hone an integrated identity. Such factors have been compounded by society's ambivalence towards social work. While social work is rooted in humanitarianism, and most do not want to see people suffer, shifting power and resources to those who are without threatens the status quo and has led to the lack of a clear mandate for publicly funded services. These dynamics have been serious obstacles in social work's ability to fulfill its mission and meet its objectives. Hobbes Pindahas, 1992. The type, scope, and depth of knowledge and skills that social workers need is vast, and specialization has increased. Hobbes Collins, 1999. Meyer, 1976. Specialization can threaten the unity of a profession if there are a variety of perspectives and no orderly and coherent scheme to classify the specialization areas. Some examples of ways to categorize the focus of social work that show the lack of a coherent scheme, according to Minhan and Pincus, 1977, are dividing social work by methods such as casework, group work, community organization, administration, and social action, fields of practice, problem areas, population groups, methodological function, geographic areas, size of target, micro, meso, macro, and specific treatment modalities. Over the course of the last century, social work in industrialized nations has fluctuated in its emphasis on cause or function, environmental reform or individual change, and social treatment or direct service. In more simple terms, if we consider the person and environment PI framework that social work uses, sometimes the person has had the stronger focus and sometimes the environment. While the conceptual framework has remained constant, PI social work as a profession has been reflexive. When coupled with its desire to also be inclusive in terms of specialization areas, it has resulted in flux and a confusing identity. Popple, 1995, states that social work is seeking to firm up its domain by becoming more exclusive, that is, to restrict the title of social worker and what is called social work to those persons with formal social work credentials who perform certain tasks or play certain roles. In India, social work is at a point in its development where some of the same issues are being considered. Mandal, 1989, writes that the introduction of specializations, notably medical and psychiatric social work, emerged in India's post-independent period, followed by other specialization areas such as family and child welfare and criminology and correctional administration. Economic development of countries is tied to the expansion of knowledge. Mandal concluded, however, that while aspects of Western social work education are relevant to Indian society, what is needed is a focus on preventive and macro-based social work practice. In the same year and in the same journal, International Social Work, 1989, Ejaz wrote the following about the nature of casework practice in India. In this pursuit of indigenization in India, the role of casework has received little attention. The emphasis seems to have shifted to meeting social development needs. Brigham, 1982, Midgley, 1981, Resnick, 1980. Besides its economic and developmental problems, India, and especially urban India, is beset with familial, personal and social problems. Jamshidi, 1978. Social work, and particularly casework, attempts to resolve such problems. To be effective as a form of social treatment, social casework therefore must incorporate the cultural elements and nuances that influence the life of people in India. P.25. To bring us more up to date with the direction and status of both Western social work and social work in India, we can turn to two articles published in 2003 and 2002, respectively, The Future of Social Work Practice by Elizabeth Clark, then the Executive Director of the National Association of Social Workers in the US, and Social Work in India, A Bright Future? By Ajit Kumar, a faculty member, with the Matru Seva Sangh Institute of Social Work, Nagpur. Clark believes that in additional to image, salary, and reimbursement issues, in the future, American social work practice will be faced with identifying and reacting to new needs in a timely fashion. This requires knowledge of politics and social trends. She cites that in times of conservative government and limited resources, political social work and activism will be strongly needed. Clark predicts that certain populations will continue to be more socially and economically vulnerable than others, only their needs will be even more intense in the future. Frail, elderly persons without resources are one example of such groups. A related trend will be an increased need for health and mental health services coupled with increasing disparities in access to care. Social agencies will therefore need to advocate and also attempt to raise more community and private resources to meet people's needs. There will be a trend away from single profession service delivery to integrated services that include social workers, and information and technology will play a role. Clark believes that the specialization areas of forensic social work and corporate social work will increase, and that national and international practice will help to shape the social work profession's role in social and economic development both in the US and around the world. With respect to the future of social work in India, Kumar states that there has been a reliance on market development and expansion of an industrial base to take care of social problems. Although such development has helped to surmount some of the complexities of caste, religion, language, and history, enormous problems remain. He reports that the problems of poverty, illiteracy, child mortality, malnutrition, joblessness, and homelessness are pervasive, and that corruption and inefficiency in institutional structures have contributed to not making basic resources such as water and roads available to groups of people. He asks whether the goals of social work will be manifested as conditions of deprivation and inequality continue in society, and the state's ability to mobilize resources and prioritize investment subsequently weakens. Kumar concludes that it is likely that growth of the market economy will result in relegating what he refers to as cast-offs, or persons who do not benefit from industrialization and other forms of development, to the care of social workers. He points out, however, that social workers will only be able to play a limited role in alleviating people's problems if these arise out of structural forces. 1.4 Universal and culturally relevant perspectives, international statements on professionalism, whether social work can be called a fully developed, unified profession remains debatable even to this day. Across international boundaries, persistent divisions among countries identified as the North, so-called developed countries, or the South, developing countries, Rotaby, Gamanley, Gamble, Wheel. 2007, pp. 418-420, continue to promote differences in the identities and activities of those working in the field. In some settings, the emphasis, historically influenced by North American and Western European developments, is on intervening with individuals or small groups, and less on larger-scale environmental forces. Here, 2004. In others, more typically though not universally in the South, the emphasis may be reversed. For social workers, finding the right balance between these objectives remains a high priority. As Hare observed, reciprocal influences of the individual and the environment represent powerful forces to be considered in all social work interventions. People are affected by their environments, she wrote, whether a polluted river, repressive social policies, a school or children's institution, the workplace or a family, and people also have the capacity to change their environments. Indeed, empowering them to do so is also part of social work. 2004, p. 410. At its general meeting in Montreal, Canada in 2000, the International Federation of Social Workers, IFSW, concluded a 6-year process by voting to approve a new international definition of social work. The definition identified key values of the profession, defining its core activities, and acknowledging the importance of comprehensive theories built on appreciation of human behavior in the social environment, HBSE. The definition promotes interventions with individuals as they interact with their surroundings on human, social, and physical levels, and encourages the empowerment and liberation of people as valuable social work processes. Here, 2004. Citing the contributions of Brazilian educator Paulo Freire, social workers were encouraged to learn how to recognize social, political, and economic contradictions within the social order, and to take action against oppression accordingly. This meant embracing a challenge to assess problems broadly, respect individual and cultural diversity, and develop responses that incorporated universal principles while adapting wherever appropriate to local and cultural priorities. Because the IFSW definition and its language was so carefully crafted by an international task force, it is included in its entirety here. The social work profession promotes social change, problem solving in human relationships, and the empowerment and liberation of people to enhance well-being. Utilizing theories of human behavior and social systems, social work intervenes at the points where people interact with their environments. Principles of human rights and social justice are fundamental to social work. Commentary. Social work in its various forms addresses the multiple, complex transactions between people and their environments. Its mission is to enable all people to develop their full potential, enrich their lives, and prevent dysfunction. Professional social work is focused on problem solving and change. As such, social workers are change agents in society and in the lives of the individuals, families, and the communities they serve. Social work is an interrelated system of values, theory, and practice. Values. Social work grew out of humanitarian and democratic ideas, and its values are based on respect for the equality, worth, and dignity of all people. Since its beginnings over a century ago, social work practice has focused on meeting human needs and developing human potential. Human rights and social justice serve as the motivation and justification for social work action. In solidarity with those who are disadvantaged, the profession strives to alleviate poverty and to liberate vulnerable and oppressed people in order to promote social inclusion. Social work values are embodied in the profession's national and international codes of ethics. Theory. Social work bases its methodology on a systematic body of evidence-based knowledge derived from research and practice evaluation, including local and indigenous knowledge specific to its context. It recognizes the complexity of interactions between human beings and their environment, and the capacity of people both to be affected by and to alter the multiple influences upon them, including biopsychosocial factors. The social work profession draws on theories of human development and behavior and social systems to analyze complex situations and to facilitate individual, organizational, social, and cultural changes. Practice. Social work addresses the barriers, inequities, and injustices that exist in society. It responds to crises and emergencies as well as to everyday personal and social problems. Social work utilizes a variety of skills, techniques, and activities consistent with its holistic focus on persons and their environments. Social work interventions range from primarily person-focused psychosocial processes to involvement in social policy, planning, and development. These include counseling, clinical social work, group work, social pedagogical work, and family treatment and therapy, as well as efforts to help people obtain services and resources in the community. Interventions also include agency administration, community organization, and engaging in social and political action to impact social policy and economic development. Here, 2004, pp. 418 to 420. To more fully define the implications of supporting social justice, two other principles have been emphasized: solidarity and social inclusion. Solidarity implies not only understanding and empathy towards humankind's pain and suffering, but also identifying and taking a stand with the sufferers and their cause. Expressing their solidarity in words and deeds in the face of any form of denial of people's political, civil, social, economic, cultural, or spiritual rights. United Nations Center for Human Rights, in Here, 2004, p. 417. Social inclusion involves resisting any process that would deny access by certain social groups to resources or entitlements, or otherwise put them in a position of being outcast. As ambitious as these goals may seem, they have been equally hard to achieve. Some view modern forces of globalization, for instance, as honoring a seamless web of world systems wherein social workers are moved towards a fuller understanding of the effects of social, economic, and environmental policies in one part of the world. On people in many other places. Rotabi et al., 2007, p. 167. David N. Jones, president of IFSW, speaking for social workers worldwide, has noted that we need to connect social work with that basic humanitarian concern, with helping and supporting people in need, and doing that globally is important for the national as well as the international agenda. Values, 2006, p. 32. Others are concerned that delivering on such promises has proved elusive over time. Summarizing a half-century of international experience, David Drucker asked whether, as we proudly and insistently claim, we really are to be found significantly at the center of concern with the poor, the excluded, and the fundamental conditions of poverty. Despite our sworn values, do we in fact function largely as selective stretcher-bearers of our own society and act predominantly with a Western cultural orientation, indistinguishable from others, currently dancing to the compelling tune of unrestrained free market forces? 2003, p. 55. Social workers' direct contact with poverty, according to Drucker, is too often through a kind of negative identification passed along by the larger society. More often than not, he writes, social workers find themselves valued and identified with, and their services funded as inadequately as, the poor themselves. Social workers become marginal, professional outcasts, expendable too. 2003, p. 63. Following a multi-country study, Thailand, South Korea, Hong Kong, Pakistan, the Philippines, and Burma, he concluded that these processes could have potential advantages when they served to make social workers more alert and sensitive to systematic problems. Useful action could follow if the reporting of such issues and incorporation of these into policy and planning became a normal part of social workers' interventions. 1.5 Summary: social work continues to struggle to be viewed as a profession. While the field aspires to the status, credibility, and authority afforded other professional helpers who, like social workers, are well-educated and skillful, social work's macro focus has been problematic. We have trouble defining what we do, along with what we should not do or specialize in, so others are confused about social work as well. Including all types of practice under the rubric of social work has resulted in an unintegrated professional identity. Some social workers resist becoming more exclusive, however, and argue that while the nature of social work is diverse, the purpose and objectives of social work are what holds us together. These are based on values and ethics that are taught via social work education. The means vary, but the common objectives of social work across cultures, according to the IFSW's carefully worded purpose statement, are to promote social change, problem solving in relationships, and the empowerment and liberation of people in order to enhance well-being. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates. and we will see you with the next chapter.